project, you'll use the Universal Laser Systems VLS 4.60 laser engraver. It's the blue one in our fab lab. The project that Marcia had you do was to create a drawing. After your drawing is created, you're going to be changing it to a JPEG. Email it yourself or save it to your Google Drive, but anything to get it to this computer. And I've already saved your example right here for this lesson. I also pulled out a few of the files that and software, that the icons that you're going to be using for this project. I have a drawing template for you set up. The software is Corel Draw, and we're going to use our UCP, or our Universal Control Panel, to actually print/cut out your picture that you created for class. So I'm going to double click on the JPEG that Marcia had created for me as an example. And you want to make sure that, once again, it's in JPEG form, and we're just going to copy and paste it into the drawing template. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to bring up the drawing template by simply double left click and bringing it up. Now, as this is opening up, I want to point out that this particular computer has a generic login. Do not log into your account when it comes to the actual computer. If the computer is shut off, tell Mr. Gain, and Mr. Gain will use the generic login to log in. But you still have the ability, I'm going to minimize this for a second. You still have the ability to log into your Google Chrome, your Google account, to bring out your project, whether it be through your email once again or your Google Drive. I'm going to bring back up Corel Draw, and I'm going to just lightly make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to make a split screen here by dragging that all the way to the right, and I'm going to bring back up the JPEG. And obviously you don't have to do this. You can just do a copy paste by simply minimizing these things in the taskbar. This is just for ease of view. I'm going to hit my right mouse button, and I'm going to select with my left mouse button copy, and I'm going to come over here into the drawing template that I created for you, hit my right mouse and left click on paste. Now I can close out my JPEG over here and maximize this screen. One of the things you have to understand about the laser engraver, this is the bed itself. This is 18 by 24. So if I were to proportionately drag it up by the corner and laser engrave this, it would be pretty much almost 2 feet by 1.5 feet. That's pretty large, and we're just going to create a kind of ornament size. So after you have it pasted, we're just going to kind of shrink it down a little bit and put it in the upper left corner. Now, many of the things about Corel Draw, if you have not used this software before, is that if I click on something that's on the screen, in this case this drawing, there's new toolbars that pop up, new options, since I selected that item. If I left click in the blank screen, all those options disappear and come back to just basically my layout. And here is my layout, that 24 by 18 that I mentioned before. Now if I left click, and you'll see all the options for this imagery. Now what we're going to do with this imagery is we're going to trace it by simply coming up here after it's selected, drop down with the little black triangle, and we're going to go to Outline Trace, Line Art. And we're going to reduce this bitmap because it is a great quality image. Simple left click and let the software do the work. And it only takes a few seconds to trace it, and it's recognizing every facet, every line, every curve that's in your drawing. The longer it takes, the higher quality image it is. After this, it's going to make it a little bit more formed in the matter of a solid but we did do that for a reason, and we just want to make sure we capture the outline, and that's why we traced it. Now if I simple left click and I drag this over, so I'm holding my left mouse button and dragging it over, you can see that it overlaid your original drawing. So this is the line traced one. Now the only reason we did this, we're going to keep this one because this is your drawing. This one we're just going to use as the outline. We're going to get rid of everything else except the outside. So I'm going to keep this one off to the side for right now and come over here and just work on this one. Now once again, all the items up here, if I left click on this one, you'll see there's actually different options up here now as opposed to your imagery. If I left click on this one, you can see that there are a couple little tiny red X icons. One is ungroup and one is ungroup all. I'm going to select ungroup with a simple left click, and I'm going to left click back out in the blank screen, and I'm going to single left click on it. Just let's say, now I know everybody's is different, but I'm going to click on this and I'm going to hit the delete key on the keyboard, and you can see it disappears. I'm going to do the same thing with everything else and try to get rid of everything besides the very outline. The circle I'm going to also try to keep. I also need to trace this outline. Currently it's just a fill with a white outline. So if I click on part of the fiddle and I select delete, you can see a lot of it goes away, and there's some that comes back, or there's some that stays. And if you can see it faintly, there's still some faint shading in here. Now I hit delete and I'm gonna hit Control Z to bring those items back because I don't know what they're connected to. So now what I'm gonna do is there's going to be a properties window that pops up over here, and so I have to make sure I can see those outlines. So I'm going to single left click on any part of your object, and I'm going to hit my right mouse button, and I'm going to go down to object properties and make sure this object properties pops up. There's an old school pen tip, a fill button. There's also transparency options, and there's other types of options in here that you can change for your project. I'm going to left click in the blank screen, and I'm going to highlight everything by left click hold and anticipate a very large box from my traced image. Now currently I'm in the outline form, and I want to be in what's called hairline. So I'll drop down and select hairline. I also want the outline to be in red. Now I know that it looks a little bit orange, but when you hover over it, you're going to hit your right mouse button. So if I hover over the red and I hit my right mouse button, you'll see that the whole outline is now red. Our option for our laser engraver, when it does cut out, we want to make sure everything is in fact in red, because it recognizes red as our cutting for the laser engraver and the black for the actual engraving process. So instead of taking a scissors or a saw, cutting out the outline, we're going to use that red line and let the laser engraver do the work. So I'm going to now, since everything is ungrouped, I'm going to try to left click on the outline and grab the X in the middle, click hold with your left mouse button and drag it out. And you'll see only part of it came out. Now there is some. Now we have the Control Z or the undo option. I'm going to left click on my blank screen. I'm going to left click on this part, and it looks like we might have the whole thing. So I'm going to click hold and now drag it out. So I do have most of the outline. I'm going to left click on my blank screen and I'm going to highlight this. Instead of clicking on every individual thing and selecting delete, I'm going to do a very large drag and select delete. Very large drag and select delete. Now these items are all connected. So I'm going to hit my left mouse button, and if I hit delete, guaranteed everything's going to go. So I'm going to hit Control Z to bring it back. Now if you recall, when I select an item on my screen, new options pop up for that item. Now, when I initially had selected what used to be this one that I deleted, there was the ungroup group options up here. When you select the vector lines or the trace lines, there's something called break apart. There's two little boxes with arrows. So as long as your object is selected, we can select break apart. I'm going to left click on my blank screen. Then I'm going to left click on the fiddle and I'm going to select delete. And you can see that the fiddle was attached to a lot of other pieces, but left a lot of the background. So I'm going to continue left clicking on items and selecting delete. Another little trick is to anticipate a box by click holding and selecting some items and selecting delete. I'm going to click down here and drag up and select delete. So you can see I do have now my full form. Now I do want to kind of walk around and check things out to make sure I don't have any other areas that might be in need of addressing. And I'll show you how to address those little tiny items in another video if things are crossed or if there's a need of drawing excess. So now I can come back over here, highlight this, and now instead of ungroup, because I still want to maintain this small little circle, and if I just click on the big one and I move it over, I miss the circle. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and I highlight everything, and I'm going to this time group. Simple left click in the screen. I'm going to click hold that middle X. I'm going to drag it right over. Now you can see that it's covering a lot of the area. So I'm going to go up to my fill bucket and I can see that it's faintly filled up. And I'm going to hit X for no fill. Now I'm going to grab the center and put it back. And I can get in here with very good detail and just maneuver this little area around to be able to cut out everything. So it will, the laser engraver will set up now, and we'll go back and forth and back and forth, and it'll engrave. Then it'll recognize the red and cut out the outside red. Now that you have your red vector line over the top of your drawing, we're going to simply go to File, and we're going to drop down to Print. Now a window pops up with some settings, but we don't have to worry about any settings that are in here. You can see that it is in fact going to go to our VLS 4.60, that's our blue laser engraver, and you can select Print. And don't worry about any settings. What we're going to do now is minimize your drawing, and we're going to open up the UCP or the Universal Control Panel. Double left click, and you can see there's your image. Now we're not going to power the machine on just yet. What we're going to do is go into Settings. Left click on Settings, and we're going to drop down to wood. And we're going to use a hardwood. And we're going to select maple. Now, the material is actually going to be a plywood, but after running the machine, you'll understand that a lot of these materials have the same density, the same hardness, and so on, and run off the same settings. So we'll just, once again, use wood and maple. The material thickness, we're going to clear this out and put a 1/4 inch or 0.25. We're going to select apply and OK. We'll power the machine on by simply hitting the power button. We're going to lift the cover, place your given material in the upper left corner. Gently close the cover. You're now ready to hit the play button. Select the play button. Like other options to cut out your design, make sure that your outline of your pen tip still says hairline. If it doesn't, drop down, say hairline, and select OK to change the document defaults. You also want to make sure that you're in red. Recall how we changed it on this graphic. We selected our right mouse button on the color palette on the right side, select OK. Now anytime you draw anything, it's going to be hairline in red, and it will cut with the universal laser system. I'm going to select my ellipse tool with a simple left click and create an ellipse. Now once again, just like anything, currently we have the ability to change anything with this ellipse. I'm going to select my pick tool and click on the left screen. The ellipse itself is exactly that. It's not quite a circle. Now, to create an exact size circle necessary, we're going to watch the quote-unquote width and height of the circle. What Corel Draw does, it doesn't give us the ability to enter a diameter, but yet the ability to change the height and the width of the ellipse. So currently, as I'm dragging this around, you can see it states 5.575, 1.75. If I clear the 5.75 and I type in your needed 3.5 and select enter, changes. If I clear as the circle is still highlighted, 3.5, hit enter, and it changes the height. One of the things you want to make sure, and I left click on the screen there, one of the things you want to make sure, if I left click on my circle, that the little lock ratio is unchecked for the first resizing. If I change this, if I just drew a regular ellipse and that little lock is locked up, and I change this and I want to change the width to 3.5, the ratio then it changes also the height. So make sure we unlock that little lock and change, once again in this case, 3.5, enter. Single left click from the pick tool out in your left screen. Now you have a 3.5 diameter circle. We're also going to need to cut a small hole in the top. We're going to simply left click on the ellipse and we can put it anywhere we want and change the width. 0.125 is our decimal equivalent for 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to left click on the pick tool. I'm going to click hold on that middle X. And I'm going to snap around, boom, to the top quadrant. So if I move this, and you can see it says edge, there's going to be the intersection, and there's the quadrant, which is the exact top of the circle. Now you can move the position up and down, and I can use what I have by click, left hold, and drag that. And now it's a little bit over 1/8 of an inch down from that quadrant. Now there's other options that you could do. If I took, for this example, maybe a rectangle, and I drew a rectangle, and just like the circle, we do have the ability to change the height. And if I change the height to 1/4 inch or 0.25, and I select enter, and I select the pick tool, and I pick up using this box here, the node at the corner, and pop it at the quadrant, I can use this box and keep it 1/4 inch away to the center. So these are all little options. You can do the same thing with a line. I'm just using a rectangle as a box. And there's your circle with a hole that will cut. Now with this image, I'm going to left click in this area here, this shaded area, as to not select the vector line that created. Now I'm going to select Control C, Control V. There's a control or a copy and a paste. Now when it pastes right over the top. So I'm going to click hold and drag my pasted image out. Now I do want to fit this imagery within this circle. So I'm going to use an eraser tool and erase a lot of the outside lines here. We're going to drop down where the crop tool is, but drop down to the eraser. And you can see this is our eraser. It's a very large circle, and in this case it's 2 inches. By the time you log in, it might be a different size. So what we need to do is up here, change the size of the eraser. Maybe let's try 0.2 and select enter. And it looks like that is a fairly decent size. Now I'm going to click hold and erase a lot of the outside area that I may not need. After you feel like you've erased everything unnecessary, let's go back to the pick tool. And I'm going to click hold on our image and just kind of move it around. You can see the gray area. It looks like the lower left, there's a little spot, and the upper left. It's not that great of a bearing, or doesn't really mean a whole heck of a lot if we miss a couple teeny tiny little spots. Now if I left click on my image, the best way to proportionately change the size of your item is use one of the corners, whichever one you feel comfortable using. And to proportionally shrink larger or smaller. But we do want to fit it within our 3.5 by 3.5 ellipse, in this case 3.5 diameter circle. If I click hold on that center mark and pop it right in the center mark, I now have that image within my 3.5 diameter circle. Now the only thing is, it may not look centered, and the reason is it's centered, but it's centered within where I created the eraser area. And you can see all these corner boxes. If we drag it a little bit bigger and do more of a fair guesstimation on where the center might be, and represent your image as you will, as you feel it necessary within that 3.5 diameter circle. The process of the UCP is the same. We will move this out of the way, and we'll put this in this area and go through the same process of the UCP. Do not worry about this being off the mark or on the screen. Remember, this is your laser area. Select File, drop down to Print. Select Print. Minimize Corel Draw and bring up the UCP. Double left click and you'll see your object. We're going to go into Settings. We're going to go to Wood, Hardwood, Maple. We're going to set the material thickness to 0.25. We're going to select Apply and OK. Power on the machine. We're going to lift the cover, place your given material in the upper left corner. Gently close the cover. Select the play button.